Beloved, you didn't stumble across this message by accident. You were divinely guided here because something within you is stirring, ready to awaken, ready to rise. Deep down, you've felt it. That unease after certain meals. That subtle heaviness in your spirit when everything around you seems fine. The spiritual fog that descends when your soul is desperate for clarity. You've tried to pray it away, meditate through it, but it lingers. Why? Because this isn't random. This isn't just about your diet. This is spiritual warfare, and it's happening right on your plate. What you're putting into your body right now is either building a sacred temple for the divine to dwell in, or it's quietly erecting a prison around your divine purpose. And the most dangerous part is happening silently, incrementally, one bite at a time, while others consume without a second thought. The chosen, those set apart by God, are sensitive. You can feel the shift. You sense the interference. That's because you were never meant to eat like everyone else. You were never meant to live like everyone else. Before we go deeper, I want you to do something bold and prophetic. Type the word revelation in the comments right now. That one word is more than just a comment. It's your declaration. It marks the beginning of your spiritual activation. As you write it, take a deep breath. Close your eyes. Feel the energy of this moment settle in your chest. Something is shifting already. Heaven is aligning with your willingness. The veil is thinning. You are entering a truth that has been hidden for far too long. The question is, are you ready to receive it? Because what you'll learn today has the power to unlock your divine destiny and restore the clarity you've been crying out for. Do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit? That's not just a poetic phrase. It's a divine reality, straight from 1 Corinthians 6 verse 19. And if your body is a temple, then what you put into it is either sacred or defiling. You, beloved, are not just a person with potential. You are a vessel of power, a carrier of divine presence. But what most don't realize is that there is a silent, strategic war being waged against that very temple. This war doesn't look like armies or armies marching with swords. It looks like food on your plate, additives in your drink, chemicals hidden in your cravings. It looks like nourishment that has been hijacked and weaponized. This world has engineered an assault that isn't loud. It's subtle. It doesn't draw attention, but it drains your spirit. Genetically modified organisms, pesticide-sprayed produce, artificial preservatives that seem harmless to the masses but are poison to the chosen. These things are not just physical. They carry frequencies, vibrations, and energies that can either raise or ruin your spiritual capacity. And while others eat without a second thought, without hesitation or consequence, you feel the shift. You sense the dissonance. A certain meal that causes you to feel heavy, lethargic, disconnected. A snack that seems to disrupt your prayers or your clarity the next day. That's not coincidence, that's confirmation. Because you're not built like the rest. You're set apart. You're consecrated. You're elect. And your frequency is not average, it's heaven-tuned. What the world sees as harmless, your spirit recognizes as warfare. It's like trying to worship in a sanctuary filled with static, trying to receive divine revelation with a clogged antenna. The interference you're experiencing isn't because God is silent. It's because your temple has been contaminated. The signals aren't weak, they're being blocked. In ancient priesthoods, dietary restrictions weren't a matter of preference. They were sacred mandates, because clarity didn't just fall from heaven. It flowed through a body that was prepared to receive it. Priests fasted, abstained, and purified their bodies not out of legalism, but because they understood that physical purity positioned them for spiritual power. They knew what we are only beginning to rediscover, that your body isn't just flesh and blood. It is a conduit for the supernatural, a gateway for glory. You, as the elect, must return to that sacred understanding. You must see your body as more than a shell. It is the battlefield. It is the altar. And it is being targeted not just by corporations and systems, but by dark forces who know that if they can pollute the vessel, they can muffle the voice of destiny. And the moment you become aware of this, the war changes. Because now you're no longer a victim. You become a warrior of your own temple, reclaiming what was holy all along. The first block, Additives that distort your frequency. There is a hidden enemy embedded in what many casually consume: artificial additives. On the surface, they look like preservatives, flavor enhancers, or food colorings. But to the spiritually attuned, to those who have been set apart by divine calling, they are something far more dangerous. These additives are not neutral. They carry frequencies that disrupt, distort, and disarm the flow of divine energy within your body. They do not just affect the physical, they disturb the spiritual. Ephesians 6 verse 12 reminds us clearly, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." This war isn't just about what's happening outside. It's about what's being allowed inside. Every time you consume artificial ingredients, you are potentially opening the door to energetic interference. This is not fear-mongering. This is fact. In fact, many spiritually gifted individuals, those who walk closely with the Spirit, report experiencing a visible darkness in their aura after consuming foods laced with these additives, especially around the third eye and the crown chakra, the very areas responsible for spiritual sight and divine downloads. We are living in a time where technology has caught up to what the ancients already knew. Aura photography, for instance, has shown that after just one exposure to chemically laced processed foods, the vibrational field of the spiritually sensitive becomes visibly disrupted. It appears as murky patches, static energy, cloudiness around the head and upper energy centers. And these disturbances don't vanish immediately. No, they can linger, sometimes for 24, 48, even 72 hours, blocking divine communication, muddling dreams, weakening intuition, and suppressing spiritual discernment. You may have felt it yourself. You finish a bag of chips or a snack filled with preservatives, and suddenly your mind feels foggy. Your prayer feels empty. You try to connect, but it's like there's a wall between you and heaven. Your heart's desire is there, but your spiritual signal is jammed. You are not disconnected, you are being blocked by something deeper than the physical. It's spiritual sabotage dressed up as food. Let me share a testimony that speaks directly to this truth. A young woman, deeply called and prophetically gifted, reached out after struggling for years with intermittent clarity. She was devoted to prayer. She fasted often. She had a passion for the word. And yet, her prophetic dreams came and went. Her spiritual clarity felt inconsistent, like a radio station fading in and out. She thought it was a warfare issue. She thought she wasn't praying hard enough. But one day, she decided to do something radical. She cut out every processed snack from her diet. Chips, candy, sodas, anything with artificial ingredients. Within a week, her dreams returned. And not just dreams, visions, warnings, prophetic encounters in the night. Her connection wasn't broken. It was buried under chemical static. That's no coincidence. That's a clearing. When you remove what hinders, you make space for what empowers. When you strip away what distorts, clarity returns like a flood. What this woman experienced is not unique. It's a pattern among the chosen. Because when your frequency is high, when your calling is divine, what others digest with ease can dismantle your spiritual structure. So, ask yourself, what have I been putting into my body that might be cloaking my gifts? What ingredients have I normalized that heaven never intended for my temple? Because the moment you start asking the right questions, you begin receiving supernatural answers. And when you act on those answers, you position yourself for alignment, revelation, and release. The static clears, the heavens open, and what was once muffled becomes unmistakably clear. The second block, consuming fear, meat from suffering. There is a deeper dimension to the food we consume, one that transcends flavor, nutrition, and even health. It reaches into the realm of spirit and energy. And one of the most overlooked sources of spiritual contamination comes from consuming the flesh of animals that have lived and died in fear, anxiety, and suffering. Let this truth settle in your spirit. Trauma is not cooked out, it is transferred. When you eat meat from an animal that has been subjected to fear, cruelty, and confinement, you are not just ingesting protein or fat. You are partaking of the energy imprinted into that flesh. And for most people, the impact is mild, if even noticeable. But for the elect, for those who are spiritually porous and vibrationally sensitive, the impact is immediate, intense, and destabilizing. What others can digest with no obvious consequence becomes, for you, a direct assault on your spiritual system. Proverbs for verse 23 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." Guarding your heart isn't just about protecting your emotions or avoiding toxic relationships. It's also about being vigilant with what you allow into your sacred temple, especially when that substance carries the residue of fear. Because when you ingest that energy, it doesn't just settle in your stomach. It sinks into your spirit, and it forms blockages, energetic walls that gather around the solar plexus and heart chakra. These are the very centers through which your divine guidance flows. The solar plexus, your seat of spiritual confidence and intuition. The heart chakra, your gateway to divine love, compassion, and connection to God. When these are blocked by frequencies of fear and death, your spiritual compass spins in confusion. You may feel disconnected, unsure, emotionally heavy, or unable to discern your next step. Not because God is silent, but because your vessel is clogged with vibrations that do not align with your divine essence. Let me share a powerful testimony that illustrates this. Raphael, a gifted intercessor, known for his deep sensitivity to the spiritual realm, was often left depleted after ministry sessions. Though his prayers were powerful, his body would collapse in exhaustion. He battled unexplained spiritual fatigue, emotional heaviness, and sometimes even physical nausea after delivering prophetic words or spending hours in intercession. No matter how much he prayed, fasted, or worshipped, he could not seem to shake the post-ministry drain. Then, in prayer, he felt led to examine his diet. He realized that his daily meals were filled with meat from animals that had lived in confined, tortured conditions. He made the decision to cut out these meats, replacing them with clean, plant-based alternatives and meats sourced with higher ethical and spiritual integrity. Within days, his body began to change. His energy didn't crash after ministry. His discernment heightened. His dreams became more vivid. His connection to the Holy Spirit became clearer, stronger, unshakable. What changed? Not his anointing. That had always been present. What changed was the energetic environment of his temple. He removed the frequency of fear, and in doing so, restored the flow of divine life. You see, when you're called, when you're chosen, you don't get the luxury of ignoring what enters your body. Your soul remembers a higher vibration, and anything that pulls you out of that frequency must be confronted. So ask yourself, am I consuming death while praying for life? Am I feasting on fear while seeking divine peace? Because the truth is, you cannot manifest heaven through a body soaked in suffering. The disconnect you feel may not be spiritual weakness, it may be energetic interference. And the moment you remove it, you don't just change your diet, you change your destiny. The third block, modified grains and the fog of confusion. There's a hidden deception buried in what seems so ordinary. Bread, pasta, cereal, grains that fill store shelves and kitchen cupboards. But what most people don't realize is that modern grains are not the grains our ancestors consumed. They have been genetically altered, chemically treated, and stripped of their natural vibrational harmony. And while the world may celebrate this as progress, heaven sees it as a problem, especially for the spiritually awakened. These modified grains emit dissonant frequencies, energetic static that scrambles the mind and fogs the soul. They do not merely affect digestion, they disturb divine perception. For those who are chosen, who walk closely with the Holy Spirit, this fog can be debilitating. What feels like fatigue or forgetfulness is often spiritual static. What appears to be anxiety or mental clutter is often the body trying to process frequencies it was never designed to carry. The Bible tells us in Romans 12 verse 2, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." But how can your mind be renewed if it's constantly under assault? How can transformation occur when the very foods you eat are broadcasting confusion into your consciousness? At the core of this battle lies the pineal gland, the physical gateway to spiritual perception. It is often called the seat of the soul, the divine antenna through which visions flow and divine downloads arrive. But when bombarded by modern wheat and gluten-based toxins, this sacred gland becomes clogged, calcified, and dulled. You may find yourself asking, why do my prayers feel hollow? Why don't I dream like I used to? Why can't I hear God like before? The answer might not be found in your spiritual discipline, but in your daily bread. Because the very thing that should nourish has become the very thing that numbs. What you thought was comfort food is quietly muffling the divine voice within you. Let me share with you Miriam's story. For years, she struggled in her spiritual walk, not from lack of hunger, but from lack of clarity. A faithful woman, consistent in prayer, devoted to meditation, and longing for deeper connection with the divine. Yet, every time she'd sit to meditate, it was as if something blocked her flow. Her visions were faint. Her spiritual senses felt dulled. She thought perhaps it was spiritual warfare, or even a season of silence. But then she felt prompted to make a change. She removed all gluten from her diet. Completely. Bread, pasta, processed foods gone. Within 30 days, her spiritual world came alive. Her meditations became vivid, exploding with color, direction, and peace. She began receiving dreams again, not just scattered imagery, but powerful, prophetic dreams full of meaning and clarity. Her discernment sharpened. Her connection to the divine felt effortless, and she realized her gift had never left her. It had simply been muted by the noise of what she was unknowingly consuming. You see, beloved, this is not just about food. This is about frequency. What you consume can either elevate your consciousness or imprison it in fog. As the chosen, you are called to perceive, to discern, to walk in the Spirit. But if your divine antenna is buried beneath genetically modified fog, even the clearest word from God can sound distant. So I ask you, what is clouding your clarity? Could it be that your next breakthrough doesn't require more striving, but simply a shift in what you're feeding your body? Because sometimes your spirit is ready, but your vessel is too full of interference to hear. And the moment you clear the fog, the voice of God will sound like thunder, unmistakable, undeniable, and divinely aligned. The fourth block, dairy and the coating of the soul. There's a substance that millions consume daily: milk, cheese, butter, yogurt, comfort foods we've been taught to trust since childhood. But for the elect, these foods carry more than just calories or calcium. They carry a spiritual weight, coating, a smothering fog that slowly wraps itself around the soul. Industrial dairy products, those produced through mass farming, hormonal injections, and chemical-laced feed, aren't just harmful to the body. They're spiritually numbing to the soul. When you consume these products, especially in high frequency, your chakras, those spiritual gateways designed to process divine energy, become coated in a dense, sticky residue. Not a residue you can see with your physical eyes, but one that is very real in the realm of spirit. It's as if a spiritual mucus forms, beginning at the heart and spreading outward. This isn't just poetic language, it's energetic truth, and those who are spiritually sensitive can feel it. The most impacted areas? The heart chakra and the thymus, also known as the high heart, the very centers responsible for divine love, emotional clarity, and spiritual discernment. These centers are crucial to perceiving God's presence, sensing His direction, and walking in compassion. When these are muffled, it becomes harder to feel God's nearness, to flow in love, to discern His whispers. And suddenly, your heart grows cold, your emotions feel distant, and your connection to divine presence seems far away. But Jesus said something powerful in Matthew 5 verse 8. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Let that sink in. The pure in heart are the ones who see. That vision, spiritual sight, revelation, connection, it flows from purity. And when your heart space is cluttered with energetic sludge from the foods you consume, it limits your ability to see with the eyes of the Spirit. You may have felt this after consuming dairy-heavy meals. A subtle heaviness, a dulling of your emotions, a sense of disconnect that lingers even after prayer. It's not in your head, it's in your energy field. And once you remove this blockade, something powerful begins to happen. I've seen it again and again among the elect. Those who choose to eliminate dairy from their lives often report spontaneous spiritual awakenings. Not months later, not after years of fasting, but within days. Divine love returns like a flood. Tears flow from a place of deep recognition. I can feel again. Many even report the emergence of spiritual healing gifts, the ability to lay hands on others and feel the energy move through them. Warmth in their palms, tingling sensations. And for the first time, they don't just pray, they transmit. One sister told me, "I used to pray for others and feel nothing. Now, when I place my hand over someone's pain, I feel fire move through me." What changed? She didn't get more anointed. She got clear. She didn't gain something new. She removed what was dulling what was already there. You see, beloved, your spiritual gifts are not missing. They are muffled. And when the muffling is lifted, when your vessel is purified, the sacred power you were born with begins to flow freely again. So ask yourself today, not with guilt, but with grace. What am I consuming that could be silencing the voice of love inside of me? What substances are muting my compassion, numbing my discernment, and smothering the divine flow that I know I was created to carry? Because the moment you choose clarity over comfort, purification over tradition, your heart opens. And when your heart opens, you will see God, not just in the clouds, but in your life, in your prayer, in your hands. The fifth block, energetically inverted foods. There exists a category of foods that go beyond toxicity and beyond physical harm. Foods that appear normal, even wholesome, but carry an energetic signature that is deeply inverted. These foods have been manipulated in such a subtle and sinister way that their very vibration runs counter to divine frequency. They don't just slow you down, they spin you in reverse. They create energetic confusion, spiritual fatigue, and internal resistance. For the elect, who are divinely aligned for forward momentum, these foods become invisible chains, keeping them tethered to delay and distortion. You see, these foods aren't necessarily the obvious culprits. They often appear clean, organic, or marketed as healthy, but their frequency has been tampered with through radiation, chemical encoding, or energetic programming. Yes, energetic programming, because not all warfare is visible. Not all weapons have steel. Some come through sound, frequency, and vibration. When you consume these inverted foods, you may not feel sick, but you feel stuck. Your prayers feel delayed. Your decisions feel clouded. Your manifestations fall flat. You're moving, but it feels like you're walking against the wind. Every step forward is met with spiritual drag. That's not laziness. That's not a lack of faith. That's spiritual interference. These foods create a misalignment with divine timing. They don't just slow your growth, they twist it. Imagine a river that is meant to flow downstream toward your destiny, but someone's inserted reverse currents underneath. You're rowing, sweating, pushing, but making no progress. That's the feeling. That's the consequence. And most people don't even know they're under the influence of these foods. But when the elect begin to clear these vibrationally altered substances from their diet, something shifts. Something deep and irreversible. I'll never forget what one spiritual warrior shared with me. He said, "For years, I felt like I was doing everything right. Praying, fasting, seeking God, but nothing was moving. It was like my spiritual wheels were spinning in place. And then I heard this message. I cleared out foods that had been energetically altered, things that didn't sit right in my spirit, even though they looked fine on the outside. And within 2 weeks, everything changed." He went on to describe how his dreams, which had once been chaotic or indecipherable, suddenly became maps of divine instruction. His time in prayer, once filled with distraction, became a flow of revelation. Opportunities began opening. Doors that had been shut for years began creaking open one after another. He said, "It's like the wind that was pushing against me started to push me forward." And that's what happens when the inversion is removed. Delays become alignment. Confusion turns to clarity. You stop striving and you start flowing. Because your spirit is no longer wrestling with food that pulls you in the opposite direction of your calling. So let me ask you, are you unknowingly consuming inversion? Have you normalized spiritual resistance because you've never questioned what's on your plate? This is not about fear. This is about freedom. And the moment you identify and eliminate what doesn't align, you will feel the shift. Your energy will move forward. Your dreams will accelerate. Your prayers will pierce the heavens. Because now you're walking with the divine wind, not against it. Removing all five and reclaiming power. When the elect make the conscious decision to eliminate all five of these spiritually disruptive food categories, artificial additives, meat from suffering, modified grains, industrial dairy, and energetically inverted foods, something miraculous begins to unfold. This is more than a physical cleanse. It is a spiritual purge, a recalibration of your entire being. It's as if the fog begins to lift, the interference begins to fade, and your soul starts remembering who it really is. This detox is not just about what leaves your body, it's about what begins to reawaken within you. The veil between realms begins to thin. You no longer feel like you're reaching for heaven, you feel heaven reaching for you. Your visions begin to increase in both frequency and clarity. Divine downloads come swiftly. Your aural field, your spiritual glow, begins to brighten. You may even notice people commenting, "You look different," or "There's something radiant about you." That's not just physical glow. That's the visible residue of alignment. Isaiah 40 verse 31 declares, "But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles." This renewal, this rising, doesn't just happen by wishing. It happens by alignment. And when your vessel is cleared of spiritual debris, you no longer crawl through your calling, you soar. You stop striving and start flowing. You stop wondering and start knowing. This is the moment where you begin to hear your higher self again. Not the self conditioned by culture, trauma, or programming, but the divine self that remembers its origin, its purpose, its mission. Your inner voice, once muffled by the static of consumption, becomes clear, commanding, and anointed. Your dreams begin turning into sermons, prophetic encounters in the night that carry heavenly instruction and revelation. You wake up not with confusion, but with direction. Not with dread, but with divine fire. Your thoughts, once scattered by the noise of the world, begin to align with the heartbeat of heaven. You no longer think randomly. You begin to think righteously. You begin to speak with authority. You begin to walk with intention. Because now your temple is clean. Your frequency is tuned. Your channel is open. This is what happens when the great purge begins. This is the reward for those who dare to return to sacred living. For those who treat their body not as a playground of indulgence, but as a temple of divine communion. And once this path is walked, you'll never want to go back. Because nothing compares to the power, the peace, and the prophetic flow that comes when your entire being is finally in alignment with heaven's design. So don't fear the purge. Embrace it. Because what feels like loss is actually liberation. And what begins as discipline will end in divine awakening. This isn't just about food. And it's certainly not just a diet. This is a deliverance, a holy reset for the temple you've been entrusted with. Your body has always been more than flesh and blood. It is the sacred bridge between realms, a divine conductor of heavenly frequencies. And now, beloved, you finally know the truth. You now understand what's been silently sabotaging your signal, what's been muting your discernment, distorting your visions, and delaying your destiny. But here's the powerful truth. The moment you choose to cleanse, you choose to awaken. The moment you say yes to this purification, you say yes to divine alignment. You're not just removing toxins from your body, you're removing static from your spirit. You're not just eliminating food, you're eliminating the interference that's been keeping you from hearing the voice of God clearly and powerfully. Right now, wherever you are, I want you to declare this with faith and fire in your spirit. I am a vessel of divine power. My body is a sacred temple. I release all blockages and open fully to the flow of divine energy. Let that declaration settle in your soul. Let it ring in the chambers of your heart. And if your spirit bears witness with this message, if something inside of you is rising in agreement, then type these words in the comments right now. I'm ready to ascend. Don't wait. Don't hesitate. Let this be your covenant, your activation, your sacred agreement with the divine. Because the spiritual war is not coming. It's already here. And the battleground has always included your body. But now you are no longer unaware. Now you are no longer unequipped. Now you rise. You rise in clarity. You rise in power. You rise in purity. You rise in divine purpose. This is your moment. This is your awakening. And the next chapter of your spiritual journey begins with every choice you make. One meal, one revelation, one declaration at a time. Heaven is watching. The angels are aligning. And your destiny is unfolding. Now go forward, cleansed, commissioned, and fully awakened.